Kyle Shanahan wins the Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is Our Sport. I'm Larry. I'm your host. John, as always, is doing the recording and editing, providing occasional commentary. We're going to get to that story in just a second. I will say real quick that right when we went to recording, it was announced that Mark D'Antonio is stepping down as head coach of Michigan State. We will cover the new coach whenever it is announced. I will say that we had a segment about the death of Michigan State football that I think is still evergreen, is still relevant content. We're going to have a link to it right below in the comment section, tell you a little bit about what we think of where the state of that program is. Now, let's get to the Super Bowl. All I can say is this: Kyle Shanahan, what in the are you doing? What are you doing? Just so we know, Kyle Shanahan is the head coach of the 49ers. He won the Super Bowl for the Chiefs, okay? He won that game for them. He was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons when they blew a 28-3 lead. I'm sure you can see the Falcons' defense blew that lead, and they did. But they could not get first downs or points, so he had a huge hand in it. And now, the two biggest leads in Super Bowl history were both blown when Kyle Shanahan was calling the plays on offense. We were watching this game with a lot of people, and I said, Kyle Shanahan's the Chiefs MVP. And I'm going to give a shout out to John's friend Jay DeVay. He says he's a two-time MVP. I'm like, that is a great point. So how did he do it? How did he mess this up? The man is a schematic genius. The man knows how to call plays on offense, how to design plays. But the man is not a head coach. That's what a great offensive coordinator does. A head coach also knows how to manage the game. And this guy is the worst manager of clock and understanding situational football in big games that I've seen in quite a while. Let's talk about the run game. Run game is working. 6.4 yards a carry. It's been working all year. He gets to the fourth quarter when the Chiefs are clearly making a run. And what happens? He gets away from the run. He puts the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. You want to know Jimmy Garoppolo's stat line? John's going to put it here. 3 for 11 for 37 yards with an interception. And you could see that he's not doing well. You could go back to the run at any point because it's working. No, we're not going to do that. I will say that before that, they had the ball before the end of the first half. And they had a chance to get that ball with about 2 minutes left and 3 timeouts if he chose to call a timeout. He did not. And you could see the general manager for the 49ers, John Lynch, he's up there. They show him on TV. He's doing a single with his hands. Call timeout. Call timeout. And they didn't. Why? They were happy with a 10-10 halftime lead. They didn't trust their quarterback, apparently. They didn't want to have the chance to not get points and then give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. So that tells you they did not trust their quarterback. Well, why'd you put the ball in his hands in the fourth quarter if you don't trust your quarterback? Why did you do that then? It makes absolutely no sense. And John had a great point where in that Falcons game, if you watch, he did the wrong thing because he should have run and he kept passing. And in the end of this game, in the first half, he ran when he should have passed. Try to get points. This is the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is on the other side of that field. He could get hot at any time. You're having a great game against him. You had a great 3 quarters. But you know that dude can get hot at any time. He's the best player in football, arguably certainly the best player on the field. You have to be aggressive and go get points. That's your time to do it. But he didn't. And this is going to hang around his neck. Now, this is the last game of the season, so this becomes the permanent narrative. If this had happened in the playoffs, you still hear some of this. Week 15, you hear a little bit of this. But this is the last game that anybody remembers. So now, this is on Kyle Shanahan's head, and especially because of the epic 28-3 collapse he had against the Niners. This is him now. This is how he's going to be talked about. Excuse me, had some pizza. This guy's going to be talked about and viewed. The guy can't win the big game because he can't manage the clock correctly. A guy who no lead is safe. You think if they're in the playoffs next year, against, I don't know, the Seahawks, and they have a 22-10 lead, 20-10, do you think anybody's going to feel safe on that sideline on his own team? Also, let's think about this. Here's what I think is going to happen next year. Kansas City is going to be good. If you look at the history, I go by history and trends a lot. The team that wins the Super Bowl next year makes a strong run at it. They know that everybody's out to get them. They're kings of the mountain, but they're kind of ready for it. And they have a lot of pride, a lot of competitive spirit. We are the world champs. All right. The team that loses the Super Bowl, they usually have horrible years. A lot of times they don't make the playoffs. And you're like, why is that? They both went to the Super Bowl. Well, it's because even though you lost the Super Bowl, you were a Super Bowl team. And now teams still treat you as like the biggest game of their season. But you don't have the benefit of having that, that great feeling you had, the euphoria of winning the Super Bowl and getting all enthused about off-season workouts. If you see the 49ers on the sidelines after that game, they were devastated, as most Super Bowl losing teams are. Also, let's point this out. They barely won that division, and they barely got a first-round bye and a home field. They had to stop Seattle on the goal line in the last game of the year. And Seattle's in that division. They're not going to be worse. Well, okay, we don't know that for free agency and the draft. Let's assume Seattle can be better, or at least as good. Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. The Rams are in the division. That team was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and a perfect example of what I was talking about. They didn't make the playoffs this year. But the nucleus of that young team is still there, and you can assume the Cardinals will be better. Now, the Cardinals might not make the playoffs, but they might be that one team that beats you, that makes you 11-5 instead of 12-4, and then you lose a first-round bye. Or maybe to make you 7-9 when you're 8-8 and you don't even make the playoffs. This team is not going to have a good year next year. I did kind of see them as a dynasty of the future. And I did say that Kansas City was going to win this game, and the 49ers in the long run could have sustained excellence. All right, after next year. They're clearly going to have a down year next year from what I believe. Also, let's talk about Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is a great player. Just ask him. He'll tell you.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
And boy, does this dude love to talk.
Best corner in the game.
Richard Sherman is a world-class front runner. Now, I'm not against talking because Deion Sanders. Nobody talked more than Deion, but boy, could that guy back it up. Man, when it was time to play, that guy came to play, and he was awesome. He backed up his trash talk with a vengeance. And Richard Sherman will talk all the time. And there's not one thing in the world Richard Sherman loves more than Richard Sherman.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
He loved the idea of getting at the Super Bowl press conference and talking about whether he should visit the White House or what he feels about the 17-game season or everything except this game. And he didn't talk about the opponents enough, and clearly he wasn't worried about them. And then when it came down to the pivotal point of the game, beside the 3rd and 15 play that the Niners blew, is when he got matched up with Sammy Watkins. Well, Sammy Watkins roasted him like a rotisserie chicken. And and Sammy Watkins, now he's not beaten, going against the great receivers of the world and getting beat. Now he's getting beat by middle-tier journeyman receivers like Sammy Watkins. Sorry, Sammy. But that's what he is, and he can't beat these guys with the Super Bowl on the line. Let's fast forward to their press conference post-Super Bowl. There's old Dick Sherman with his curt, terse answers, one-word responses. You're not going to talk now? What's the matter? You bashful now? Don't get bashful on us. You had a lot of opinions before, but now you're not going to say anything? Now that you might have cost the 49ers the game?
He looked like Cam Newton after that Super Bowl that he had.
Oh, that is a great point. Cam Newton had a very similar Super Bowl afterward in his press conference. That is true. And I know it's hard. You lost the Super Bowl, but Richard, Dick, you love holding court. You love everybody to know your opinion. And come on, let's hear your opinion after you are the one who might have cost the 49ers their Super Bowl championship, that one play. Now, I don't want to imply that the Chiefs are not deserving of a world championship. The Chiefs had a lot of great things going for them. Andy Reid, the great Pat Mahomes, the devastating world-class speed of Tyreek Hill, Kyle Shanahan. All that was in their favor, and I don't want to imply that they don't deserve this championship because they did. And you're seeing a difference in a great quarterback between a guy who you're going to have questions about. Because Pat Mahomes, he struggled for so much of this game. And when you needed him, when you needed that big play on 3rd and 15 late in the game, of course he delivered. And you can see, if you're looking closely, if you squint a little bit, they have these shots of him walking down the field. That might have been after that play. It was late in that game, 20-10, and now it's clutch time. You have no room for error. You've already fumbled once. You've already thrown 2 interceptions. And then look at him. Look at how he is. He is just calm and relaxed. And that is what a 24-year-old MVP and Super Bowl MVP should look like. He was so clutch when you needed him. This is what the great ones do. I've seen Dan Marino do it. We've seen Tom Brady do it. He can have a bad game. He can have a bad 3 quarters. And then that flip switches when you need him most to deliver. And you can't deliver in more of a big stage than a Super Bowl. Now, this could be a serious dynasty because Andy Reid has what he's always wanted. Andy Reid loves throwing the ball. He loved having 3 running backs not being able to play in this game because he gave him an excuse to do it. Even though Damian Williams had a good game. But he's got this kid for the foreseeable future, and he's got a unique skill set. He's got the cannon arm, the ability to throw off platform, and he has so many of the intangibles you want. We're going to have an episode on this pretty soon about the most underrated quality in a franchise quarterback, and it's intangibles. It's judgment. It's what kind of character he has. I think this really matters. Pat Mahomes is a great kid, likable, and also let me say this. We see teams like the Patriots win, and Patriots fans, come at me. These are the worst fans in football, aside from maybe Cowboys fans.
Or Eagles fans.
No, Eagles fans are good fans because Eagles fans know football. Okay? They may be obnoxious and they start a lot of fights, but those people know football. Cowboys fans and Patriots fans don't know about football. All right? So for years, you have great fans. The Bills, man, they have awesome fans. They have 80,000 people in that stadium. The Chiefs, and these teams have suffered, and it has not paid off for them. And they supported their team through some really lean years. It's been 50 years since the Chiefs won a Super Bowl, and it's coming home to Kansas City because Pat Mahomes and those fans, those are great fans. They finally got what they deserved. Congratulations to Chiefs fans. Tom Brady, I did not think was going to leave the New England Patriots, and here's why. Beside the fact that it's maybe one of the best fits for him, when you see the video of him when he leaves the playoff game that they lost on the Titans, the wild card game, he doesn't do kind of a farewell tour. He doesn't stand on the field, wave at the fans, give kind of a longing thank you and goodbye. If you notice, Tom Brady went right in the locker room afterward, knowing his season was over. So I thought for sure that Tom Brady was going to be a Patriot. As a free agent, he was going to re-sign with them or retire. Now, there's all kinds of rumors, and the question is, what's the most interesting place for Tom Brady to go? He's been associated with the Titans. Mike Vrabel, his former teammate, head coach there. He would be an upgrade of Ryan Tannehill. If you look at a lot of Brady's problems, I'm not sure it was his necessarily respective talent as much as his receivers that declined around him, their ability to separate. Well, you got players like A.J. Brown and Jonnu Smith at tight end and handing off to Derrick Henry. That'd be a good fit. There's talk you could go to the 49ers, a replacement over Jimmy Garoppolo, who has a long-term contract that he signed, but is easy to get out of now, the way the contract is structured. And people don't know this. When the 49ers called and they made a trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, when they made a phone call, they weren't calling about that quarterback. They were calling about Tom Brady. That's the quarterback they were trying to get before that trade. He could go to Oakland. This one is fascinating because that'd be a good fit with John Gruden. John Gruden loves cranky, old veteran quarterbacks that can understand every part of his system. He took a journeyman like Rich Gannon, who'd been in the league 10 years, and made him MVP. Gannon had spectacular years under Gruden. And there's talk that Derek Carr's on his way out there. And how about those games? How about if he joined the Raiders and twice a year you have Tom Brady against Pat Mahomes in the same division? Those games would be fantastic. You don't agree?
No, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying, yeah.
Now, there's also one last place, and I think this could be even more intriguing. I mean, this is what this is, right? The NFL is drama. It's our soap opera. And the Miami Dolphins. Another Belichick assistant down in Miami with the Dolphins. if you look the entire Brady-Belichick run, every time they've gone down to Miami, they've had trouble winning that game and lost often, have a losing record in Miami. And this time they lost in the last game of the year in Foxborough, and it cost them a first-round bye. They were trying everything they could to tank this team. And that coach still won 5 games. And now you have Tom Brady, and how about that, in the Patriots division, going up to Foxborough, or them coming down there. You would have a real strong an idea of maybe who is most responsible for that Patriots success. Because it's hard to differentiate. Is it Brady? It's Belichick. Of course, they both have a huge amount to say in it. But you're going to have a narrative there that if, let's say, Tom Brady beats them twice, that Belichick was not as good without Tom Brady. Okay. I mean, it's every coach in football would be not as good without Tom Brady. That's fair. But most quarterbacks would be not as good without Bill Belichick as head coach as well. I hope he goes to the Dolphins. This is where I hope he goes. It is the most drama. I'm not a fan of either team, so I want as much drama as I can get, as much intrigue. And Tom Brady going to the Dolphins, I think, would be the most drama that could happen. Let me say one thing about Bill Belichick.
We now return to your regular programming.
He has 6 Super Bowl wins. And Bill Belichick has become the great distorter of how coaches are viewed. You cannot get reasonable expectations from coaches anymore because you always say, well, is that how Belichick would have done it? And let's look at one thing. Look at the coaches who have won Super Bowls that are currently in the league. Mike McCarthy, Dallas Cowboys, good coach. 1 Super Bowl win. Sean Payton from the Saints, regarded as maybe the second best coach in all of football. A great coach, yet only 1 Super Bowl win. Mike Tomlin from the Steelers, regarded at least as a good coach. He has his critics somewhere in a fan community, but he has 1 Super Bowl win. And now Andy Reid, in his 22nd year, finally climbed the mountain. The one thing he said that the people knocked him for, he couldn't do, is win that big game. He has. He has 1 Super Bowl victory to his name. This is how difficult it is when your team, like the Cowboys fans, they hired Mike McCarthy. They're like, oh, he's fine. I can understand that because his last 2 years were kind of a downward spiral in Green Bay. However, he's won 1 Super Bowl. Let's take Bill Belichick out of the equation and let's stack blind resumes. How many coaches are out there that have won multiple Super Bowls? And I should know it, unless I'm wrong. I don't think there's any that are active right now. And so if you've won 1 Super Bowl right now as a coach, you're a pretty good coach. You have a lot of that. And you can say, hey, I'm one of the few right now that are doing this that can claim that. And it's because Belichick ruined it for everybody. Like, he ruined so many things. He completely wrecked that division, and he ruined the standard of how we perceive coaches, about what the logical, correct way to look at a coach is. How many times they win the division, perhaps. And it'd also be interesting to think about who would the beneficiaries be. Let's say you went back in time, I don't know, a Jets fan, got a time machine and shot Bill Belichick when he was coach of the Browns. What would NFL history say? Let's say the Patriots had a below average coach, like most teams do during this time, this whole period. Who would be the beneficiary? Who would have won all these Super Bowls in the vacuum of that Patriots dynasty? Where would Tom Brady have gone? Also interesting. He might not have been drafted because he was barely drafted. All these things are interesting to think about and probably gives us a good idea for another episode coming up. But it just kind of goes to show you how really, really good Bill Belichick is, which we all knew, but how you look at other coaches differently because of him, which is something that's not talked about enough. I will say this, and I'm going to have this one on an episode later. I can argue that Bill Belichick is not the greatest coach of all time, like he's often called, and I can give 1 strong candidate that nobody talks about. That's coming up in an episode.
Bet. Who?
That'll be for the episode.
Swear up.
Do it up. No, I'm not saying. That's no fair. No.
Who?
No.
What's his name?
Well, if I say who it is now, then they're not going to tune in when I post it.
Who are they? Hi, I'm John, and as always, from me and my father, we'd like to thank you for tuning in and watching this episode and all the other episodes that you watch on our channel. If you want to become a subscriber, the subscribe button's right down there. If you like this video, the like button's down there as well. In the description box, we're going to have links to some of our previous episodes, including the episode where we talked about Michigan State. We're going to have other ways you can come into contact with us, like on our Facebook page, our Gmail, our Twitter page. And if you have any other suggestions for us, the comment section down below is a great way to come into contact with us. We'll most definitely read your suggestion, whether it be coach, team, player, whatever it is. We'll be most certain to talk about it in an upcoming episode. And as always, thank you for watching.
Next episode, we're going to have our All-Pro team. Good job.
All-Pro team. Oh, shit.